Hello, music appreciation students, and welcome to Unit 2 and our discussion of dynamics. So Unit 2 is going to cover our second element, which is dynamics, and it will also cover music of the prehistoric and ancient world. I hope you feel pretty confident with the stuff we've covered in Unit 1, rhythm and music of today, and have read the appropriate chapters, Chapter 8 of The Complete Idiot's Guide to Music History, where it discusses how we kind of look at music history, how we can group music together and all that. I feel Chapter 8 is just kind of a good place to start off because it gives you some ideas as to why music is delineated the way it is, and gives you some insights into why we choose generally a chronological approach to discussing music. But moving on now, we actually get to start listening to some music of the ancient world and some music of the prehistoric world, which I always find really fascinating. I heard it said that music is a direct connection to the past. You know, we can actually listen to what people listen to, and I always find that really entertaining. But that's not the point of this. We will cover all of that in the lecture slides for ancient music. This is about looking at dynamics and discussing what dynamics are, because we are surrounded by dynamics. But before we get into that, I really want to do a quick refresher on rhythm. So just a quick reminder, rhythm is time. Okay, it deals with time. And we discuss rhythm in terms of beat, meter, and tempo. Okay, so a lot of times you'll hear people say, well, that song has a really good beat to it or whatever. And, you know, while what they're wanting to say, the idea is correct, the terminology is wrong, because it's the rhythm of a song that really captivates us, because beat is boring. And as you have discovered in listening, like on the quiz, we listened to those two songs that have the exact same beat. They have quite the different feeling, even though they have the exact same beats per minute. The feeling of the songs is completely different, and that's because of the rhythm. Rhythm plays such a strong role in how a piece of music is perceived. All right? But today we're going to go on, and we're going to discuss dynamics, and I title this Being Dynamic. Because think about like people you watch on television or artists you like to follow. They're probably big personalities and have like really interesting speech patterns, and they can speak really high, they can speak really low. They're really energetic. And we would describe their personalities as dynamic. And so I would ask you, what does that mean? What does a dynamic personality have? And you would probably answer something like, well, they're energetic and they're really high energy and they're just captivating. And that's dynamics in a physical sense. But in an oral sense, we also have dynamics. So dynamics are, boom, all aspects relating to the loudness or the quietness of music. Okay, so when we discuss music, we can talk about how loud it is. We could talk about, like lullabies. Lullabies are generally pretty quiet. You don't want to play loud music at a baby. The point is to get them to go to sleep. But let's say you were at a rock concert. Well, the dynamic's going to be really loud because you're at a rock concert and nobody goes to a rock concert to hear lullabies, right? So you would expect there to be quite the difference in volume. If you walk into a rock concert and you've kind of mentally prepared yourself for it to be this really loud event, but then they do nothing but lullabies, your expectation would be defied, and that would be, shocking to you, and you wouldn't expect it. So that's dynamics at work, degrees of loud and soft. So we use Italian terms again to discuss dynamics. So dynamics is the volume of sound, loud or soft. So our basic dynamics are right here. Forte, use the proper Italian pronunciation with that rolled R. Forte and piano. Okay, so forte, piano. the instrument, the piano, historically was called the pianoforte or the forte piano because it was able to play multiple dynamics. And if you play piano, you know that this is the case, that I can touch the keys of the piano softer and get a quieter pitch, or I can put a lot more weight into them and get a much louder pitch. Okay? We also have this crescendo, which is a gradual growing louder, and a diminuendo, which is growing softer. Sometimes people will say decrescendo, whichever they want to use is fine. They mean the same thing. Now we also have these extremes over here. I love the Italian language and the fact that if you want to make something more, you add an issimo to it. So you get like 2 F's would be fortissimo, which is very loud. 2 P's would be pianissimo, which is very soft. And what's even funnier is you can just kind of keep adding P's and F's, and for every P or F you add, you just add another issimo. So, like if it were F, 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 it'd be fortissimo, issimo, 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 issimo. It's the best system out there. All right. And then we can also have these sforzandos, which are abruptly loud. And then last but not least are our middle ground people, our moderates. They think outside the box. They listen to everything. We got our mezzo forte. It is pronounced mezzo. You don't call it pizza. You don't call it mozzarella. It's pizza and mozzarella. It is mezzo forte and mezzo piano. Our next slide here, I kind of give you a chart of dynamics from quiet to loud. So you can see here we get a pianissimo issimo all the way up to fortissimo issimo. Okay? Generally speaking, and I say that very broadly, we live in this realm here. These are the dynamics that get used the most. Piano, mezzo forte, and forte. Those are the ones that you are going to encounter the absolute most in all music. Okay? If you're a classical music fan, you will get exposed to the whole range of dynamics. The whole range. If you listen to nothing but like pop music or popular styles of music, you're probably going to be in this range here of mezzo forte to forte. Because it is, they're such short pieces and they're meant to be quickly heard and quickly consumed and to grab your attention really quickly. So they usually just stick with one dynamic throughout the whole song. So you wouldn't think of them as quiet. They're probably at least mezzo forte. Sometimes they are just outright forte. Just depends on the song. So some things I want you to think about is to use those Italian words, okay? So start learning to replace your vocabulary. Instead of saying this song is really quiet and peaceful, say this song is piano, okay? Because I'm going to be looking for that in your assessments. Dynamics are relative, okay? So when I mean dynamics are relative, what is loud to you is totally different than what is loud to me. Okay, I've heard some very loud things. You may have not heard so many loud things. I don't know. So what you think is loud and what I think is loud is completely subjective. I like to use the example of, before, let's give a year like, for most of music history, I can't even think of a year right now, but for most of the history of music, the loudest sound the average person ever heard was a clap of thunder. Today we hear a clap of thunder and we don't generally bat an eye. We're around loud sounds so much that a clap of thunder doesn't generally shock us that much. But, if this were 200 years ago, a clap of thunder would be really loud. So that's an example of how dynamics are relative compared to where they are and in what context they are. We do sometimes think of dynamics mathematically. I am a math nerd. I'm very proud of that fact. So I often approach dynamics as forte is 100%. So actually, I can't even say it like that. It depends on what my loudest dynamic is. If my loudest dynamic is forte, well, fortissimo. If my loudest dynamic is fortissimo, then it's 100%. So then I can go down from there and say, okay, so forte is 80%, and mezzo forte is 60%, depending on how many different dynamic spreads I have. So if I only have a dynamic spread that goes from forte to mezzo piano, then that gives me forte, mezzo forte, and piano, to mezzo piano there. Let me erase that piano. I only have 3 dynamics, so that's going to change so forte is still going to be 100. This is probably going to be 66%. This is probably going to be 33%, So that's the mathematical approach. You don't need to know that. It's just something that I do in case that interests you. Okay? And some songs are louder than others. Now, if this were a truly free country where I wouldn't get in trouble for a copyright infringement, I would do something in action here. But since I can't play song clips without paying royalty fees, I'm limited on what I can do. But here's what I do want you to do. I want you to listen to some of your favorite pop songs, okay? I don't care what they are. Just listen to them. And notice that they're all about the same volume level. Now, I'm not talking about how loud you turn them up or down in your car. They're all about the same level of loud regardless, okay? And a good way to test that is to set your car stereo at a volume, and you probably don't need to change it to hear any of the songs. So that should be a good indicator that they're all at the same dynamic. And then when we get to the music that we're going to listen to for this unit in the ancient music section, listen to the differences there. And I think that you will get a real sense that some of this music was really quiet because it was meant for like a service. It was meant for a religious purpose. So it wasn't as loud and energetic, big air quotes around the word energetic. So take a listen to it and start thinking dynamically about the music that you listen to, in addition to rhythm, because it's like building a house. We have to keep adding those elements to it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I will be doing more work here soon on the actual unit of ancient music as well. Talk soon. Goodbye.